Part 3, Melville Dewey, Mission Mechanics, focused on the aforementioned Dewey, who is best known as the inventor of the Dewey Decimal System, and also played a large role in influencing librarianship to the way it is today. He had an obsessive personality with a large emphasis on time and order, and worked hard to ensure that not only his but other people's time would not be wasted. He also believed in the importance of morality and librarianship in the way of shaping public opinion and their lives, much like many other contemporary colleagues. A quick highlight of his career: he was the chief librarian of Columbia University Library from 1883 to 1888, and during his tenure there founded the first library college, the School of Library Economy, in 1887. After that, he was the director of the New York State Library in Albany from 1888 to 1906, and while there served 2 times as the president of the American Library Association in 1891 and 1893, and founded the Lake Placid Club in 1895. He was also an advocate for women librarians, especially compared to other contemporaries, and included them in his library school, which, as will be described in the next slide, created issues for him with the board. Throughout his life, Dewey was a man who faced a lot of controversies. Due to his contentious personality, he made a number of enemies, and this led to the end of his tenure with Columbia due to his acceptance of women into his library school and his dealings with the board. While he was in Albany, he also faced a good deal of scandal. For example, his anti-Semitism led to a petition being brought against him in 1905 because of the fact that he would not allow Jews in the Lake Placid Club, and he received a censure from the New York State Board of Regents as a result. This, coupled with a sexual harassment allegation he faced during this time, would lead to the end of his tenure with the New York State Library. He actually faced multiple allegations throughout his life, but this one he faced in 1906, claiming impropriety on a ALA trip in 1905 to Alaska by 4 women librarians, and this pushed him out of active library work for the rest of his life, outside of minor dealings. It also hesitates the complex relations he had with women. While he did support them as librarians in their career more than many others did, he also held very paternalistic views towards them and was hesitant towards their advancement in higher rankings as a whole. The final part of the book, Part 4, is entitled The Tender Technicians, and focused on the way that women existed as librarians during this period of time. Women made up the vast majority of librarians, and by 1910, 78.5% of all library workers were women. However, they were also paid much less than their male counterparts and made up an even smaller portion of library leadership. Their role was to be a genteel hostess and bring values of the home into the library, which is why, especially as time went on, many of their roles had to do with children in libraries. For example, building children's libraries, aspects, increasing the holdings of children's libraries, and the creation of activities such as storytelling that still exist today. And a large number of women librarians, in fact, either never married or married much later in life than their average non-librarian counterparts. This was due to an emphasis on career, as those who married young often left the profession permanently to raise their family, and many librarians felt they had to choose or were forced into choosing, essentially. Due to the influence of women in this profession, librarianship became a highly feminized profession, much like teaching and social work. Women librarians in power also reflected the moral values of the time period that their male counterparts had, for the most part. While feminism did impact a few notable examples, it did not have as much influence during these early years as it did on other professions. However, due to the feminized nature, there was also much less male readers than male librarians, so they constantly tried to attract more in a number of ways, but this never really seemed to happen. It was the irony that because the feminized nature of the library was so an important factor on it, male readers came at a lower rate. However, this feminized nature continued due to the fact that the low wages they could pay women meant that they continued to hire women at a much smaller slate than men, and it continued to shape the library as thus. Also, due to the immoral nature of the library, there was a crusade by women librarians as well as male librarians to try to Americanize immigrants, though, as in the case with male readers, this happened at a much smaller pace than they hoped. World War I was kind of a turning point in the way that the women librarians existed. There was a very large exodus of women from the profession due to the fact that government business jobs paid more for essentially similar work that they were doing at the time. The Great Depression continued to hurt the women librarians working due to the fact that the scarcity of jobs and the fact that employers would refuse often to hire married women due to the fact that those jobs could go to men, either married or single. As a result, more men also entered the profession than had before. By the time this book came out in 1979, there had been more questioning of women's roles by the 1960s and 1970s with the rise, again, of a new sort of feminism, though Garrison does finish the book by stating that so long as sexist attitudes govern our society, real change cannot occur in the field, and it's not essentially optimistic, just understanding that there's a long way to go before it's equal.